Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, here with our way too early top 25 poll. And you know, guys, a lot of people like to put these polls out right when the season ends, so usually sometime in the middle of January. I'm typically not a big fan of that because I want to wait and see, how the transfer portal shapes out. How do the rest of the coaching changes pan out? So a lot of other factors that go into our poll other than just how a team finishes 2021 or how they finished the previous year. So we're here to bring you our official way too early poll going into 2022. But before we do that, guys, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below. Hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button if you haven't already, helps us out tremendously so we can continue to bring you content like this year round. And that's exactly what we want to do, is talk college football with you year round. So please help us out and join our Gridiron Expert team today. So let's jump into this poll, guys. Again, you know the drill. We're going to be doing little quick hitters on each team. Hopefully it won't take too long. But we're going to go start over in the top 10. Let's start with number 1. It's Alabama. Yes, the Crimson Tide, they're not the reigning national champions. Obviously, that title belongs to Georgia. But Alabama will once again be loaded going into 2022. And typically a Nick Saban team that with vengeance on their mind is not one that you want to face. Bryce Young is back, the Heisman winner from last year. Will Anderson is back, one of the best defensive players in the country. Alabama returns the majority of their defense from last year, one that was a force to be reckoned with. They'll be even better in 2022. So the Crimson Tide, to me, are the undisputed number 1. Ohio State coming in at number 2. C.J. Stroud is back. Jackson Smith-Njigba is back. That quarterback-wide receiver duo may be the best in the country going into this next season. Factor in that Ryan Day went in and hired Jim Knowles as his defensive coordinator away from Oklahoma State. One of the more underrated hires, I believe, that a lot of people didn't talk about. He's going to come in and transform this Ohio State defense just like he did down in Stillwater with Oklahoma State. Ohio State, what was their weakness last year? Their defense. You get a solid defense in there, and the Buckeyes may have been in the college football playoff. They could very well make a return trip this year. Georgia in at 3, the reigning national champions. Again, they obviously are going to be a top 4 team, and obviously are going to be the kings of the SEC East until proven otherwise. And right now, arguably, their 2 biggest competitors, not Florida, but might be Kentucky and Tennessee, both of which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But Stetson Bennett is back at quarterback. The defense is typically very strong under Kirby Smart. Georgia, right now, you don't want to jump to conclusions, but it seems like a shoo-in to win the SEC East. If they get there undefeated to the SEC Championship, they're probably a lock for yet another college football playoff spot. Still a long ways to go, but the Bulldogs, once again, will be looking to repeat as national champions, and they have a very good shot at doing that. Utah's in at number 4 for us, and a lot of people are going to say that is way too high for the Utes, and we disagree. Because who below them should be above them? Texas A&M? I don't think so. The Utes, guys, the way they finished was unbelievable. And yes, we know they lost that Rose Bowl to Ohio State, one of the better games of all of last year. But this is a team that went 10-4 last year. Now returns their star quarterback in Cam Rising. Returns Tavion Thomas, 21 rushing touchdowns on the year. This is a Utah team that returns the majority of their starters from the team that won 10 games and nearly won the Rose Bowl and won the Pac-12. Utah, to me, is actually the favorite for the Pac-12 going into 2022. And absolutely is a college football playoff contender. That might seem far-fetched, but let's not forget a few years ago, the Utes were one Pac-12 championship away from getting in to that Final Four. Utah, to me, is a top 4, at least top 5 team going into this season. Below them, we have Notre Dame, 11-2 on the year last year. Going to need help at quarterback. Is it going to be Drew Pine, Tyler Buckner? Who knows? But Marcus Freeman, the new era in South Bend. We talked about him in our coaching changes. He's got a lot of talent to work with, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Solid guys coming back there. Yes, they lose Kyle Hamilton, but they replace him with Brandon Joseph. This is going to be a very solid Notre Dame team, guys. One that, if they can navigate a very difficult schedule that includes a season opener at Ohio State, could be a playoff contender. Texas A&M at 6. We don't have them at 4 because they don't deserve to be at 4. Still a top 10 team, but not nearly that high. The Aggies went 8-4 last year, and just because they have recruited extremely well, to me, does not mean they're going to jump from 8-4 to 4. I just don't see it. 8-4, strong recruiting class. Mac Johnson comes in as transfer quarterback from LSU. Not the guaranteed starter for the Aggies, but obviously gives them some experience at starter if they choose to go with him. They have to replace pretty much their entire defensive line, though. and that's going to be a problem there, along with a new defensive coordinator. So A&M still a good team, guys, but it's Alabama's division. Even though A&M beat them last year, it's Alabama's division until proven otherwise. A&M could be the best bet to knock them off, though. NC State is in our top 10. 18 starters return for the Wolfpack. 18 starters, including their star quarterback, Devin Leary, and 10 starters on defense, including 14 of their 15 top tacklers from last year. NC State was great last year. Didn't get to play in their bowl game due to COVID. They have a shot not just make a bowl game, maybe to win the ACC, maybe be a dark horse playoff contender. Because yes, they are a top 10 team in our eyes with all that returning experience. Oklahoma State, they lose Jim Knowles to Ohio State, but 7 starters are back on offense, including their star quarterback in Spencer Sanders. This is a team that went 12-2 last year and were inches away from making the college football playoff. They have a very good chance to try to make a return trip to the Big 12 championship and maybe try to sneak into the playoffs this year. Michigan in at number 9. They lose Josh Gaddis to Miami. They lose Aiden Hutchinson. They lose Ajabo on defense. You're losing a lot of guys from a Michigan team that finally made the college football playoff last year under Jim Harbaugh. But they still have a solid quarterback, whether they go with J.J. McCarthy or Cade McNamara. They still have Jim Harbaugh, who many thought were going to leave for an NFL job. He is sticking around in Ann Arbor. Michigan State, a playoff team, the reigning Big Ten champs, to me, yes, do deserve to be a top 10 team. And to close out our top 10, Clemson coming in at number 10. And many will say, how? How is Clemson a top 10 team? Guys, we were all so down on Clemson last year because they didn't make the college football playoff. They didn't even make the ACC championship. But this is still a team that won 10 games. They were 10-3 last year. And they returned practically everybody on offense. The $1 million question is, are they going to go with DJ Uiagalelei or Cade Klubnik at quarterback? That's going to be really the difference maker, whether Clemson can reemerge as a playoff contender or they're going to stay middle of the pack again. And middle of the pack for 10 wins, not too bad. Yes, we know they lose Brent Venables and Tony Elliott, but Brian Breesy is back to help out that defense, and Clemson might reclaim that ACC throne after taking a year off in 2021. Going through the rest of our top 25, we'll try to go quick. Michigan State at 11. They went 11-2 last year. They lose Kenneth Walker, their star running back, but Peyton Thorne returns along with 9 starters back on defense. Mel Tucker will have them in contention for a Big Ten title again and potentially a college football playoff berth. Remember, they got as high as number, 3 in the country last year? Could do it again. Oregon, brand new head coach in Dan Lanning, coming over from defensive coordinator at Georgia. The Ducks, maybe not the Pac-12 favorites right now, but building something there. Dan Lanning is bringing in Bo Nix from Auburn as his quarterback. Noah Sewell will be back as one of the best linebackers in the country. 15 starters return as a whole. Oregon opens the season against Georgia in Atlanta. Wake Forest in at 13. They were kind of a surprise last year, rising as high as to 10th in the country in 2021, and their star quarterback in Sam Hartman, one of their top wide receivers in A.T. Perry, both return, and Dave Clawson went out and hired Brad Lambert from Purdue as his defensive coordinator to help out a Wake Forest defense that was horrendous. But Wake Forest, guys, they're a team that absolutely is a top 15 caliber team, top 15 offense in the entire country, and will make some noise once again in the ACC. Baylor in at 14, the Big 12 champions and Sugar Bowl champions. Had they defeated TCU last year, Baylor would have been in the college football playoff. But Gary Bohannon is back at quarterback, should be fully healthy. The offensive line is loaded, but they're going to need more wide receiver help and maybe some help on the defensive side of the ball, as only a handful of starters return there. But Dave Aranda will have Baylor back in contention for a Big 12 title, maybe even another playoff berth, possibly. Houston in at 15. The Cougars went 12-2 last year and returned their big 3 on offense. Clayton Tune at quarterback, Alton McCaskill at running back, and Nathaniel Dell at wide receiver. They returned 6 starters on defense. To me, that was where the Cougars needed the most help. Even though they had a pretty solid defense last year, they can improve us a little bit more. They do that. They're going to be the AAC favorite this year, maybe the highest ranked Group of 5 champion when it's all said and done. I'm not saying they're going to repeat like a Cincinnati type of thing, but you could see Houston in a New Year's Six bowl game with the amount of talent they have coming back. Arkansas coming in at 16. The Razorbacks went 9-4 last year. KJ Jefferson is back at quarterback. Jaden Hazelwood is in at wide receiver from Oklahoma. The offensive line is absolutely loaded. And Sam Pittman did a phenomenal job utilizing the transfer portal to bolster that defense. They got Bumper Poole returning from last year. Drew Sanders comes in at linebacker to replace Grant Morgan from Alabama. The secondary went out and got a couple guys to replenish that. Arkansas is a team, guys, that when you look at them and you look at their schedule, could be in for maybe a 9-win regular season, and they could be 1 or 2 upsets away from really making noise, not just in the SEC, but on the national stage. BYU in at 17. 8 starters on offense return, including Jaron Hall, and almost the entire defense returns. The Cougars have a very favorable schedule in the sense of good opportunities to bolster that resume. Typically, they don't have a very strong strength of schedule. They will this year, including a home date against Arkansas. BYU can win some of those games. They could be in for another top 10 finish. Iowa in at 18. 10-4 last year, horrendous on offense. And to me, that's the biggest issue for Iowa going into the season. They have to improve offensively. But we know their defense is great. And they return 7 starters on that side of the ball. They lose Tyler Goodson at running back, so they're going to have to find someone else to help them out on offense. They're going to have to find some better quarterback play. But Kirk Ferentz will have his Hawkeyes back in contention for a Big Ten title. Remember, the Hawkeyes made it last year. Fell to the hands of Michigan. Cincinnati all the way down to number 19. Many will say, well, how are they 19 after making the college football playoff last year? We got to keep in mind how much they lose. They lose their star quarterback in Desmond Ridder. And they lose a lot of guys in their secondary, including Ahmad Gardner and Kobe Bryant. Only 2 starters are back on the defensive side of the ball for the Bearcats. And they're having to replace their quarterback. Don't see a playoff repeat for them. Maybe not even an American Athletic repeat for them. But Cincinnati is still a top 25 team. And they'll still be very, very competitive in their American Conference. Down to number 20, we've got Ole Miss. Ole Miss, 10-3 last year. They lose Matt Corral, and Lane Kiffin says, hold my beer, I'm fine. He goes out and gets Jackson Dart from USC, along with plenty of other transfers. Ole Miss was one of the better teams when it came to utilizing the transfer portal this offseason. So Ole Miss kind of replenished everything that they lost due to transfers or graduations, things like that. And Ole Miss, to me, is a top 20 team, and their offense really shouldn't miss a beat after having a very historic and electric one in 2021. We have Oklahoma in at 21, our final 5 here. Brent Venables, a brand new head coach in Norman, with a new quarterback in Dylan Gabriel after so many people followed Lincoln Riley out to USC. And as you can see, USC is nowhere to be found in our top 25 because just because you get a new head coach and a bunch of transfers doesn't mean you deserve to be a top 25 team after going 4-8 in 2021. USC, you'll see them on many people's list, not ours. They do not deserve it. Lincoln Riley has to go out there and earn that out in LA. But Oklahoma, guys, they were a team that went 11-2 last year. Yes, that was mostly Lincoln Riley's team, but a fantastic hire in Brent Venables, experienced quarterback in Dylan Gabriel, loads of talent. Oklahoma will be competing for a Big 12 title this year. Pittsburgh is in at 22. They went out and got a new quarterback themselves, Keaton Slovis, coming in from USC. So Jackson Dart to Ole Miss, Keaton Slovis to Pittsburgh to replace the great Kenny Pickett and the historic year he had with the Panthers, leading them to a ACC championship. So you got Keaton Slovis in there, one of the better wide receivers in the country, and Jordan Addison remaining with the Panthers. Pat Narduzzi still returning as head coach. This is a Pittsburgh team that once again could win what will be a wide open ACC Coastal Division. Kentucky in at 23. Will Levis and Chris Rodriguez are back to lead what could be an even better offense than the Wildcats had last year. Mark Stoops continues to amaze me in Lexington. Another double-digit win season going 10-3. Kentucky, guys, we mentioned, could be one of the bigger threats to Georgia in the SEC East, along with Tennessee, maybe even South Carolina. Right now, maybe not Florida. But Kentucky, guys, they are the real deal. They are a top 5 caliber team, and they do return about 7 starters on the defensive side of the ball, which we all know is Mark Stoops' main area of emphasis. Final 2 teams, Wisconsin at 24. Guys, the Badgers are a top 25 team, but barely. They have to help themselves out offensively. Graham Mertz has to take that next step, and we keep wondering when that will be. And if he's not going to take that next step, Wisconsin's just got to get themselves a new quarterback. It's the defense that does the majority of the damage for Wisconsin. They did lose a lot of defensive starters from last year, so that is going to be a main area of concern. They've got to improve and replenish defensively, and they've got to find an offense. Still one of the better teams in the Big Ten, certainly in the Big Ten West, but their stay in the top 25 can be very short-lived unless they figure some things out. And finally, Tennessee Coming in at 7-6, we can all admit though that they should be 8-5. They got robbed in that Music City Bowl against Purdue, and I will stand by that. Not a Tennessee fan, not a Purdue hater. But I think majority of us can agree that Tennessee was robbed in that game against Purdue. But guys, nonetheless, Josh Heupel did a phenomenal job in year one and is poised to do even better things in year two. Hendon Hooker returning at quarterback for the Volunteers. The offense absolutely loaded, now entering year two with a loaded offensive mind in Heupel. If the defense can take that next step, if the defense can improve just a little bit, Tennessee will be a legitimate threat in the SEC this year, could very well challenge Georgia this year in the East, and will make some noise both in the Southeastern Conference and on the national stage, but that's only if they can improve on the defensive side of the ball. So there you have it, guys. Your way too early top 25 going into 2022. We want to hear your thoughts. Who's ranked that should not be? Who's not on our list that should be? Who's too high? Who's too low? Leave your top 25 in the comments below because we certainly want to hear from you. And of course, here in the next few days, we will begin schedule previews for every single one of these top 25 teams. So if your team made the list, congrats, because you're going to hear us talk about them even more in the following weeks. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Help us out and help us grow. We're taking a few seconds just to do all of that. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.